I'm older now than I ever imagined myself being. Some mornings when I sit still long enough, I can feel the years in my chest before I feel them in my bones. It isn't pain exactly, it's weight, the kind that comes from realizing how much time has already gone quiet behind you. I used to think life would begin after something else happened, after the right moment arrived, after I felt ready. I didn't know then that waiting could become a habit, or that habits could slowly turn into a life. When I was younger, I believed time moved forward in clean lines. School, work, love, meaning, one thing after another. I thought patience was a virtue and that waiting showed maturity. No one told me that waiting too long could slowly empty the room. Relationships changed first, though I didn't notice it happening. Friends drifted away in polite, unspoken ways. We promised to meet, promised to call, promised to catch up when things slowed down. Things never slowed down. We just learned to live without each other. I remember people who once knew my laugh by heart. I don't remember the last time I spoke their names out loud. That still surprises me. My priorities shifted without asking my permission. What once felt urgent became background noise. What I told myself could wait became something I never returned to. I don't remember deciding any of this. It just happened, quietly, while I was busy being careful. Inside, I changed too. I became more measured, less curious. I told myself I was being responsible, but sometimes I wonder if I was just afraid of wanting things that might not come true. I remember a job I stayed in longer than I should have. It wasn't terrible. That was the problem. It was comfortable enough to keep me there, year after year, telling myself I was lucky. I waited for passion to arrive on its own. It never did. There was someone I loved once, or almost loved. I don't know which is more accurate anymore. I waited for the perfect words, the perfect timing, the moment when I would feel certain. They didn't wait with me. I don't blame them. I told myself there would be another chance. There usually is, until suddenly there isn't. I used to believe confidence was something you earned after enough preparation. I spent years preparing, reading, thinking, observing. I was very good at observing my own life from a safe distance. Sometimes I replay small moments in my mind. A conversation I cut short because I was tired. An invitation I declined because it didn't feel important at the time. A morning I rushed through without noticing the light. These aren't dramatic regrets. They're quiet ones. They sit with you longer. I blamed circumstances for a long time. The economy, responsibility, other people's expectations. It took me years to admit that much of my waiting was my own doing. I was protecting myself from disappointment. I didn't realize I was also protecting myself from living. As my body aged, the waiting became harder to ignore. My energy didn't renew itself the way it once had. Recovery took longer. Silence became louder. I noticed how often I postponed joy, as if it were something that would keep. There's a particular loneliness that comes with realizing you've been present but not fully involved. You showed up. You did what was asked. But you held something back, waiting for permission you never received. I thought patience would make me wise. In some ways it did, but it also made me distant. People stopped asking what I wanted. I stopped asking myself. If you're younger and listening now, you might think I'm talking about big risks or bold choices. I'm not. I'm talking about small delays that add up. The phone call made tomorrow instead of today. The feeling ignored because it felt inconvenient. I waited to feel worthy before speaking honestly. I waited to feel successful before resting. I waited to feel certain before loving fully. Each time I told myself it was temporary. Temporary has a way of settling in. There were moments when I almost stepped forward. I can still feel them. A tightness in my chest. A quickened breath. Then the familiar voice reminding me to be sensible, to be realistic, to wait a little longer. That voice sounded like wisdom. It wasn't. Aging strips away many illusions, but it doesn't replace them with clarity all at once. It happens slowly in the spaces where you realize you don't remember the last time you felt eager, or the last time you said yes without calculating the cost. My health didn't fail suddenly, it faded politely. A little less strength here, a little more fatigue there. Enough to remind me that time was no longer something I could assume. I became more aware of endings, not dramatic ones, just the quiet closing of doors I hadn't walked through. Some rooms in my life remain empty because I never entered them. I don't say this with bitterness, mostly with surprise. I thought I had more time to decide who I would become. Pride played its part too. I didn't want to fail publicly. I didn't want to be seen trying and falling short. Waiting allowed me to imagine a version of myself that never had to be tested. But imagination, I've learned, is a poor substitute for experience. There were days filled with routine, and I told myself that stability was enough. And sometimes it was. But sometimes, late at night, I felt a restlessness I couldn't name. I mistook it for dissatisfaction when it was really longing. I waited for that feeling to pass. It didn't. It simply learned to be quiet. If you're listening now, sitting somewhere far from where I am, you might recognize that quiet. It doesn't shout. It waits patiently, just like I did. I don't regret my entire life. There were good years, kind people, moments of genuine warmth. But I do regret how often I postponed presence. How often I lived as if rehearsal mattered more than the performance. Time changes how you measure success. It becomes less about what you achieved and more about what you allowed yourself to feel. I spent too long withholding. There are faces I wish I had studied more closely. Voices I wish I had listened to without distraction. Versions of myself I never allowed to exist because they felt impractical. I used to think meaning would arrive fully formed, like an answer. Now I think it accumulates quietly through participation. I was too cautious to participate fully. Some mornings I sit and remember how it felt to believe that life was waiting for me to catch up. I smile at that thought now. Life was never waiting. It was moving, steadily, with or without my attention. I don't know if things would have turned out better had I acted sooner. I only know they would have turned out differently. And sometimes, different is what we're really afraid of. If you're younger, I won't tell you what to do. I don't have the authority, and I don't trust simple conclusions anymore. I can only tell you what it feels like to reach this age and realize how much waiting shaped you. Waiting dulls the edges of desire. It makes everything feel optional until nothing does. It convinces you that caution is the same as care. I learned too late that life doesn't ask for readiness. It responds to presence. Now, at this age, I don't wait much anymore. Not because I've become brave, but because there's less time to negotiate with myself. That realization came quietly, like most important things do. I sit with my memories, not to fix them, but to understand them. Some days I forgive myself, some days I don't. Both feel honest. This isn't a warning, it isn't a lesson. It's just a voice from far down the road, telling you what the air feels like here. I spent too long waiting. And now, as the days move more slowly and the years move faster, I live with that truth. Not as a burden, not as a regret that demands resolution, just as something real resting beside me as time continues to pass.